that still might have happened, and there are some very worrying signs that that is happening right now. But I have come out after having immersed myself for how many months now? 8 months in this. I've been living it. I believe it's actually doable. It is actually physically possible for us to do this, but we've really got to get our finger out. There's all sorts of points from history that I've sort of dragged in together for this disparate thing. Everyone should have a veggie patch. Everyone. Absolutely everyone. It should be subsidised by the government. In fact, for elderly people, we pay the gardeners to go around and do it, but you are sequestering carbon on your soil. You're having a microclimates being created, which magnificently increases biodiversity. And we must remember too, there was such a thing as World War II. Remember World War? Well, we've read.
No, I don't remember World War.
No, neither do I. But we've read of World War II. And when the Germans invaded Russia, they raped the farmlands as they went in, as they've done now again to Ukraine. Oh, no, sorry, not the Germans. The Russians have done that to Ukraine now. But when the Germans, of course, they're feeding their war machine. And they also, when they were retreating, they had a scorched earth policy to try and starve the Soviets into submission. Now, at least 40%, if not more, of all of the food that kept the Soviet Empire alive and fighting during World War II was grown in backyard gardens.
Really?
Right? That's a significant percentage of food production. And I think if we really think about it scientifically, we can go better than that. And if we're growing our own food on site, one, we're reconnected with nature. We've got a better understanding of what the systems are about. We're reconnected. Got to get back to the land and set my soul free. Transport costs for food transport. No carbon if you just, well, you breathe, but you go and pick them out. I pick my veggies out of the backyard and throw them in the pot, and hey presto. So transport issues, nutrition goes up. You learn more about what you're putting in your gob, right? And hopefully we'll see McDonald's broke. Bad thing? I don't know.
Well, okay, that's another issue.
That is. But no, it's local action that's going to do it.
Well, what other actions? What other practical actions can be taken to have a quick impact?
Oh, there is no quick impact here.
There's no quick impact.
No, this is going to be a long war.
Okay. So where should any government start?
Civilization is now in the fight of its life. Right? We're a civilization in decline. You heard of Rapa Nui? Easter Island?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah? They used up all the resources. Went extinct. We don't have another planet to go to. We are in the fight of our lives.
Okay.
I'm just hoping that some of the ideas that we've come up with resonate with the younger generations, because they're the people that are left up to their neck in it.
Okay. Let's talk specifically, you mentioned the oceans and the problems with plastics in the oceans. How can we protect and restore our ocean ecosystem?
Oh, right. Well, the first thing is obviously reduce atmospheric carbon dioxide levels. Right? And the ocean itself is going to help us do that through the phytoplankton carbon pump. And again, it's about biodiversity, because phytoplankton feeds zooplankton feeds small fish feed big fish feed seals. Humans eat big fish. Some of them shouldn't. But so first of all, protect it as much as possible. You've got to cease deep sea trawling, both benthic trawling and demersal trawling. Both must go. Many, many deep sea organisms are long-lived, right? There are some sponges in the deep sea that are over 10,000 years old. That's a 10,000-year-old animal. Now, that means that carbon that makes up that animal has been out of circulation for 10,000 years. That's sequestered carbon. And you go destroying it? So don't drag the bottom. For that one reason, and for the other reason, it upsets the layers in the sediment at the bottom. And again, the deep sea floor is a bit like the mangrove mud we were talking about before.
Yeah.
It's an incredible carbon sink.
Yeah.
It's a lot of carbon down there, a lot of organic matter, hell of a lot of organic matter. And there's a hell of a lot of that organic matter that's been broken down and forms into methane, and at the poles that then gathers water molecules around it, and they're frozen in as methane clathrates. Now, these things are melting at the moment, releasing more methane into the air, and that's even more worrying to me at the moment than our carbon dioxide level, because that's a tipping point. And if it's run away from us, it's going to be ugly. But we've got to be aware of what's going on. We also need to drastically reduce plastic pollution.
Okay.
You've seen photos of the Gaia and all this horrible stuff that's going on in there, but this is something that we can see.
Yeah.
But it's not something that's under our nose because it's out over there in the ocean, someone else's problem. But we've got to deal with it, because not only are they entangling wildlife, a lot of these plastics contain chemicals that I'm not really happy with. Some of them are known hormone disruptors, for example. Now, you get a sort of hormonal change in an marine environment where it's never been experienced before. What in the hell is that going to do? And we don't want to upset these systems. They're complex, and we need the complexity to take the carbon out of the air to save ourselves. We've got to look after the earth, otherwise we're fried. But we also... the other thing is we need to control the nutrient pollution resulting from human activity. So here, agricultural runoff, agricultural runoff, aquacultural runoff, and household wastewater and sewage. It all goes into the sea.
Yeah.
Why? It doesn't belong in there.
Yeah.
Those nutrients have come from the land and should stay on the terrestrial in the terrestrial ecosystems.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, okay, you get the occasional flood, and that puts a flush of nutrients out in the sea and causes an algal bloom, etc. But that's a natural cycle instead of a constant torrent of these many artificial fertilizers that are hitting our ocean. And any wonder we're having problems. But it's big, and as you know, I can just go on and on and on about it.
Okay.
But the other thing I think that's most important, if we're talking about some big picture stuff, is that we really do need to move away from monocultures as fast as we possibly can. Now, there are ways of doing it without radically reducing efficiency for harvest and cropping, but it requires some nous, and it will require some experiments. And there are some other ecosystems that we have where the amount of carbon that can be sequestered by that environment has one physical impediment, and it is it doesn't have enough water. And so one thing that I'm advocating is to establish some very, very large desalination plants on the coast of Australia, 2 sites in particular.
Yeah.
And we'll have a go at regreening the centre of Australia. And here I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of square kilometres.
Yeah.
Regreened. It's like air was standing water during human habitation. We know that from the middens and whatnot. We know what wetlands were there. There were wetlands, bogs, and freshwater lakes, and a significant freshwater fishery. Does that sound like some carbon sequestering country to you? Because it certainly seems like it to me.
Yeah.
And yes, we are changing that environment.
Yeah.
But it's not changing it into a monoculture. We're going to allow the old ecosystems to flourish as much as possible.
Yeah.
And I want the Indigenous owners in on this, right? Because they've got stories of when there was water and what it was like there. So we've got an idea of what we're looking for, and also some idea on how to manage it, because they've got tens of thousands of years of experience doing it.
Yeah.
And they didn't destroy the dam. Well, actually, they did damage some of the environment, but that's another issue for another day. But they worked out a way to live sustainably is the key point. Right? They may have changed a few things, but they did work out how to live on this continent sustainably.
Mm-hmm.
That's no mean feat.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't done it. We certainly haven't done it. Being Europeans, we invade the country, and the first place that we come in that's got a decent harbour and some good soil, we call that a port. From then, a city develops, and so the most fertile soil in Victoria is under the CBD of Melbourne. It's under
Yeah.
concrete.
Yeah.
That's real smart stuff. Real smart. People put spare soil and bury it. Clever people.
Yeah. Okay. I'm very interested in this idea of these salination plants. Is there a paper? Is there a paper that's what's the most authoritative place to learn more about that idea?
You've got to go doing some deep digging and trawling around in the net to just drag information together.
Okay.
What I've done is run a few numbers, and yes, it's an enormous engineering challenge. This one, it's going to be very expensive to do.
Haven't they done that in the Middle East? Haven't they been experimenting with desalination?
Yes, and that's where I've got a lot of my numbers from.
Mm-hmm.
Right. The two biggest ones that I'm aware of, there's one in Saudi Arabia and there's another one in the United Arab Emirates, and they are producing 1.6 gigalitres of water a day. That's a lot of water. That's 1.6 gigalitres per day per plant.
Yeah.
Now, I've done my figures on 1 gigalitre a day, significantly less, which means that we can even do this without going top drawer technologically. We go with the tried and tested ones that we know work for a long time. So instead of buying the top shelf computer, no, we're going to old standard here because we want it to work. We know it works and we're not going to fool with it. Do it once and do it well and then get on with the next thing. So I've done my numbers based on that, and I'm looking at about 16 of these plants. Strategically positioned. I've also been looking at things like the issue with desalination is that you're creating a hypersaline brine. And
what? Can you say that again?
A hypersaline brine.
Okay.
So it's done by reverse osmosis. You pump it through a membrane on pressure, and fresh water goes through it, and the salt stays behind. So the water that's left over is saltier than the seawater.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it's about 1.6 times saltier.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that can be a real environmental issue, depending upon where it's put, how it's put there, and the health of the environment around it. So we're going to be looking at long long delivery pipes to deliver this brine into significant oceanic currents so that you get an immediate mixing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some of the purists are going to say, yes, but that's still raising the salinity of the area and the ocean. And I say, yes, you are right. But have a look at the geological record and show me a mass extinction that's been caused by a slight increase in salinity of the oceans. Doesn't happen. Change carbon dioxide and acidity and you lose species straight away.
Okay.
So we are about pulling carbon out, and it's not, it's a bit like, look, you're going to have a little bit of an insult here, but you will adapt, and you'll adapt quickly because you've done it before. See, they've been exposed to these saline changes over geological time.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about organisms that have been in ecosystems that have been around for hundreds of millions of years. The marines, that's where life started. 3.5 billion years ago, we've had life in the oceans.
Mm-hmm.
Highly significant.